So there are people that are trying to disprove the existence of Indo-Europeans now. And this is mostly Afrocentrists, okay? And this is what I mean. Eurocentrism, in my opinion, is a myth. Because what it's saying is the people that promote the concept that Europeans just did a lot of stuff, but yet, like, for example, when my grandparents learned history, they learned about everybody's history, including the Chinese and all that, the best of the ability of the people teaching at that time. But they were very well versed compared to the average student today in world history. Okay? Now that's pathetic, but that's my point, is they did not go to school. Supposedly they went to school at the time of the height of Eurocentrism, but yet they knew about the histories of China, the histories of Asia, the histories of these other regions. That's quite a time ago. That would be well over 80, 90 years ago that they went to school, but yet they had a fairly decent grasp, a better grasp than the average person today does, of the histories of the world, okay? And where certain things came from, like certain foods and things like that. So, Indo-Europeans, generally a name for the people speaking an Indo-European language. They are the descendants of people of the Yamnaya culture in Ukraine and southern Russia, and settled in the area from Western Europe to India in various migrations in the 3rd, 2nd, and early 1st millenniums before the Common Era. It has always been known that many languages in Europe are related. Italian, Spanish, Romanian, French, Portuguese are descendants of an ancient Latin tongue. English, Dutch, Frisian, German, and the Scandinavian languages go back to the dialects of the ancient Germans. The old languages of Ireland, Wales, Cornwall, and the Isle of Man share a common ancestor in ancient Celtic roots. In the late 18th century, European scholars started to understand that all of these languages were not just related to each other, but to the ancient Persian and Indian languages. So, ancient Persian and ancient Indian languages were related to all of these other languages: Gaelic, Welsh, German, Dutch, Frisian, English, Latin. All of these languages were related to these ancient Indian and ancient Persian languages. This is the root that they broke from. In the 19th century, experience offered several possibilities. Migration was a common practice in the age of imperialism and could explain why languages in various regions could be similar. Alternatively, people might adopt first individual words and later complete languages from their neighbors. If you notice, people speak with a black accent today and have borrowed a number of Ebonic words. And a lot of people, like where I live, Ebonics is the spoken language amongst whites and non-whites alike. Like, for example, the formal language amongst whites in my area is American English. Sadly, usually poorly spoken American English. The informal language where I live is a mix. It's kind of like if you ever saw the movie Idiocracy. It's a mix between Valley Girl, Kardashian, and Ebonics is the informal language around here. So the 19th, and I think it's like that throughout a lot of the country, sadly. The 19th century scholars usually opted for the first explanation, blah, 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 looking for a homeland. The first thing scholars needed to find out was the nature of the original homeland. They did so by looking at the shared vocabulary of Indo-Europeans. Those languages had similar words for the same trees and animals, allowing scholars to say something about the homeland's flora and fauna. There must have been bears, otters, vultures, cranes, salmon, beavers, oaks, junipers, apples, because there's similar words for all these things. Most of these are, of course, quite ubiquitous, meaning they're everywhere. For the people that speak Ebonics, it's ubiquitous means they're everywhere. But the presence of otters and beavers suggested forests and extensive wetlands, which ruled out large parts of Eurasia. Words like king, wagon, and plow were also interesting because archaeologists could find elite burials, chariots, and archaeological tools. The quest for the original homeland has had several false starts, but the steady accumulation of data on the one hand, the discovery of the Hittite, Lowian, and Tocharian languages, or Tocharian languages in the 20th century, and the growth of our understanding of the ways languages evolve, on the other hand, have helped. So this is the study of memetics in a way. So again, if you read The Selfish Gene by Dr. What the hell is his name? Dr. Richard Dawkins, I actually forgot his name. Prior to becoming a professional turd, Richard Dawkins was actually I would say a social scientist, but if you read The Selfish Gene, it's very interesting. It's been more or less disproven, but in my opinion, it's difficult to prove or disprove The Selfish Gene, but I do think that The Selfish Gene is very important in understanding the behavior of dishonesty. Okay, but more importantly, in the end, he brings up the theory of memetics, and that's important that people understand what that is. So the first migrations, the Yamnaya culture, flourished between 3,600 and 2,300 BC in Ukraine and southern Russia. Some of the Yamnaya people were farmers and cultivated the land, and others were nomads who roamed across the steppes. Okay, now remember, that's important. The steppes are important. That area is important because that's where the people came from. They went into India and Europe, blah, 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 before 3500 BCE. Two groups branched off from the Yamnaya people. The first, these moved to the east, probably as shepherds looking for new fields in Siberia, and settled in the west of what is now China. Archaeologists, so if you think about the, what the hell are those people called? The Turkic people of that region, that's where they came from. Archaeologists call these people the Afanisi, whatever, that culture. These eastern settlers would continue to live for centuries. Later they would convert to Buddhism, and because we know the central concepts of this religion, the Buddhist texts written in Western China can be understood. Their languages, which are closely related to the oldest Indo-European language, are called Tocharian, Tocharian A and Tocharian B. The second group moved to the south to the area of the Caucasus Mountains, where they must have lived for quite some time before they proceeded to Anatolia, which means modern-day Turkey. Perhaps they were identical to the Makop culture. They shared words for yoke and thil, whatever that is, with the Indo-Europeans, proving that they had left after the Yamnaya culture had learned agriculture, but did not share the words to describe wagon, wheels, naves, and axles. So they didn't, not when they discovered the wheel, they weren't there. The arrival of the second group in Anatolia is documented in cuneiform texts found in ancient Canes, whatever. It is likely that at some stage Canes itself was taken over. The descendants of these immigrants spoke Palaic Hittite, and 2 Luwian languages, or Luvian languages, which can be documented in the Bronze Age. In the Iron Age, we find late forms of Luvian or Lowian in Lydia, Western Turkey, Lycia, and Caria, meaning in the southwest of Turkey. Okay, these languages have retained an element of Proto-Indo-European language. Passive voice endings with R in the homeland. This characteristic was lost. It can be found in a third group to move away at the very early stage, Proto-Italio-Celtic below. The speakers of this language can probably be identified with the people of Usatavo culture. As indicated, the Yamnaya people had learned to domesticate horses and knew how to build wagons, okay, because they knew these words. This mobility had 2 faces. Often they were just shepherds looking for fields, but they could be aggressive. So, after 3500 BC, the Yamnaya region started to expand. As a consequence, linguistic changes no longer reached everyone. The Proto-Italo-Celtic group had already moved to the western periphery when the passive voice endings with R disappeared from the other languages indicated in yellow. See, this is a little map here. So you got the green, which is Balto. Okay, that goes. Green is something. Green is Proto-Germanic, and that broke away into Balto-Slavic, and so you see the overlaps of these, and Germanic overlaps with, so 1 is, I guess, what is 1? 1 is Proto-Indo-European, and then you got the green here, which is Proto-Germanic and Proto-Balto-Slavic group. So it shows what the chart means, the 6 language shifts. All of these linguistic shifts can be reconstructed from latter languages, and because they had to take place among neighboring languages, we have an idea of the relative positions of the proto-languages in the Yamnaya region. Finally, blah, 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 to the Balkans. You can read the rest of this on your own, but this is a real migration history to Greece. Okay, the additional puzzle is the relation between Armenian and Greek, because both languages are quite close. Now, this is interesting because, remember I said Phoenician. Okay, Phoenician, the written aspect of Greek, is very similar to Semitic languages, but there's also a lot of similarity between Armenian, so there's Indo-European and Semitic origins to the Greek people. This is also true in the Levantine people, so it's very interesting, like in Syria and things like that. So there was, and that's the thing, Indo-European DNA. Oh, I'm glad I didn't stop. At the beginning of the 21st century, scholars were beginning blah, 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 Kurgan hypothesis. Another discovery was that the Indo-European shared genetic modification that allowed them to drink milk. So that's important to understand. Indo-Europeans can drink milk. They're one of the only groups of people that can. Lactase persistence gave the dairy pastoralists access to an additional source of food. A success, however, that was also achieved by violence and murder. See, now this is what I love. They have to make it sound. This is the craziest thing. So you can catch the liberal kookiness in academia here. So instead of being objective and just saying, oh wow, they can make lactase past weaning, okay, which most mammals can't make lactase past weaning, okay, that you could stop there, but no, it happened with blood and murder and gore. While in Western Europe there is continually blah 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 literature, and then this is that, okay. So I wanted to cover the Kalasha people. I know I said I was going to go right into Biologic Living by John Harvey Kellogg, and I probably will be able to fit it into this video, but I wanted to quick talk about the Kalasha people. So the Kalasha or Kalash are an Indo-Aryan indigenous people, okay, that reside in the Chitral district of Khyber whatever in Pakistan. Regions with significance: Kalasha Valleys, Chitral District, and Pakistan. Kalasha Kohar religion, ancient Hinduism. Let's see why that's important, because I'm going to show you why that's important right here. So, historical Vedic religion, the historical Vedic religion, Vedism, or ancient Hinduism, and subsequently Brahmanism and Brahminism, constituted the religious ideas and practices among some of the Indo-Aryan peoples of the northwest Indian subcontinent, Punjab, and western Ganges during the Vedic period. These ideas and practices are found in the Vedic texts, and some Vedic rituals are still practiced today. It is one of the major traditions that shaped Hinduism. Through present day, but it says though present day Hinduism as marked by different, though present day Hinduism as markedly different from historical Vedic religion. Yes, it degraded as it got away from the pure essence of the Brahman. Okay, it got away from the naturalistic concepts and more into this psychological bullshit and archetypes and blah 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 blah, which is, it became an impure religion, just like Christianity is an impure religion, just like Islam is an impure religion, just like Judaism is an impure religion. But all religions have this purity in them. Okay? People might remember when I was talking about the Yoruba people in Africa. The Yoruba people have an almost pure religion. There is a certain essence of human religion. Okay? So the Vedic religion developed in the northwestern region of the Indian subcontinent during the early Vedic period. This is the pure religion. The Tengrism in this is the pure religion of the Indo-European people and the descendants of the Indo-European people, the people of Germanic descent, the people of British descent and Celtic descent, the people of Italian descent, the people of Greek descent, the people of Turkish descent, the people of Iranian descent. This is the pure religion of these people. The genetic religion of these people is the ancient, it can be traced back to ancient Tengrism. Okay? And that's the religion of nature. Okay? So people look for this now, but Christianity has aspects of this, Islam has aspects of this, Judaism has aspects of this. Okay, the Indus Valley civilization was a composite of the religion of the Central Asian Indo-Aryans. It was a composite of the religion of the Central Asian Indo-Aryans, a syncretic mixture of Old Central Asian and New Indo-European elements, which borrowed distinctive religious beliefs and practices from the Bactria, Morgana culture, and remnants of the Harappan culture of the Indus Valley. Remember, they intermixed with the Harappan culture. Okay, during the Vedic period, Brahmanism developed out of the Vedic religion as an ideology of Kuru Panchala, that means something 5, realm which expanded, blah blah blah, Kuru Panchala realm. Brahmanism was one of the major influences that shaped contemporary Hinduism when it was synthesized with the non-Vedic Indo-Aryan religious heritage of Eastern Ganges, which also gave birth to Buddhism and Jainism, and with local religious traditions. Specific rituals and sacrifices of the Vedic religion, I don't think we need them anymore, but it's important to know that they existed. The Soma rituals, the fire rituals, and the Ashvamedha horse sacrifice, the rites of grave burials, as well as cremation, blah, 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 blah. Vedic deities such as Dayas, Indra, Agni, these are the very primal. These are not Shiva, Vishnu, yada, yada, yada. These are the almost more similar to the Nordic deities or the Greek deities, Dayas, Indra, Agni, Rudra, and Varuna, and important ethical concepts include Satya and Rata. Let's make sure what these are. So Satya, word loosely translated as truth, essence, it also refers to virtue in the Indian religions, referring to being truthful in one's thoughts. In yoga, Satya is one of the 5 yamas, meaning don't lie. Okay, so we got Satya. So Rata, which means order or rule or truth, is the principle of natural order, universal order, which regulates and coordinates the operation of the universe. Okay, terminology. Vedism refers to the oldest form of the Vedic religion when Indo-Aryans entered the valley of the Indus River. Origins and development. Indo-Aryan Vedic religion. The Vedic religion refers to the religious beliefs of some Vedic Indo-Aryan tribes. The Aryas, remember I mentioned the Aryas who migrated, so that's where they get the term Aryan from. So that's a borrowing from modern science of a Sanskrit word, Aryas, okay, who migrated into the Indus Valley, the Indus River Valley region of India, of the Indian subcontinent. The Vedic religion and subsequent Brahmanism, meaning the worship of the supreme god, which is nature, similar to Tengrism, center on the myths and ritual ideologies of the Vedas as distinguished from Agamic and Tantric and sectarian forms of Indian religion. So let's see what Agamic is. Agmas, it's a collection of several tantric literature and scriptures. Now, what's interesting about Tantra, I've found tantric exercises extremely beneficial to my health. Okay, so Agama traditions include yoga and self-realization concepts. Some include Kundalini yoga, asceticism, philosophies ranging from Dvaita. These are things that came about later. I would not consider these to be necessarily impure, but evolutions. Scholars note that some passage in the Hindu Agama texts appear to repudiate the authority of the Vedas. Okay, the Agamas this is about the evolution of religion. Okay, the Agamas literally genre may also be found in certain traditions of Buddhism and Jainism. Okay, Tantric Buddhism, or Tantric religion. So Tantra, expansion, device, salvation, spreader, loom, weave, warp, refers to the esoteric yoga tradition. Now, the esotericism is a little bit ridiculous. However, there are specific exercises, breathing exercises, and exercises for the reproductive system that are very beneficial. These exact exercises are in Taoism. There's also, as you can see here, it is the union of the twin flames of Ida and Pangali, or Pina, whatever. It's the unification of masculine and feminism in the Mahatantra, which results in re-establishing the God, the place of deityship in the individuals, who then join in union. Okay. So, blah, 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 blah. Indo-Aryans were speakers of a branch of Indo-European language family which originated in blah, 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 blah. So, let's go back to The Kalasha. The term is used to refer to many distinct people, including the Val, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the Kalash are considered to be an indigenous people of Asia. These are the indigenous people of Asia with their ancestors migrating to Chitral Valley from another location, possibly further south, while the Kalash term called Siam, to Siam, whatever, in their folk songs and epics, blah, blah, blah. Some of them claim to be descendants of Alexander the Great's army. I wouldn't doubt if some of them are. The neighboring Nuristani people of the adjacent Nuristan province of Afghanistan once had the same culture, so let's see what these folks look like. So these are the Afghani people. Notice anything similar about them and other people? Okay, so the Nuristanis, or known as the Kafiristanis, that remember Muslims call, like, you know how Jews call people Gentiles, well, Islamic folks call people Kafirs. So they're an ethnic group in Nuristan province, northeastern Afghanistan, and Chitral district of northwestern Pakistan. Their languages comprise the Nuristani branch of the Indo-Iranian languages. Okay, these are some of the folks. Pre-Islamic religion. So, an authority before their conversion to Islam, the Nuristanis practiced a form of ancient Hinduism infused with accretions developed locally. They acknowledged a number of human-like deities who lived in the unseen deity world. Certain deities, now remember, just because of this does not mean that they're discounting Brahman. There are individuals with different individual abilities. Okay? I'm not a big believer necessarily in deities, but you have to remember these are beings that live in various, and people that practice magic can tell you this, ritual magic such as Aleister Crowley's magic. There are different vibrational realities. Okay, so this is not necessarily out of sync. Like I said, I like using the Egyptian terms. In the Hindu, it's Brahman, and I believe Devas or Devis or something. But I like using the Egyptian terms because I'm more familiar with them as a former practitioner of Western ceremonial magic, which is more based in Egyptian religion. But there is God. And then there is the Nataru, the nature spirits. Religion. The Kalash people are primarily practitioners of the traditional Kalasha religion, which is a form of animism. Now remember, animism is basically a sister to pantheism. Pantheism is a modern type of thing. However, a minority have converted to Islam. Okay. The isolated Kalash have received strong religious influences from pre-Islamic Nuristan deities noted. Okay, the myth is notably the role of Indra, his rainbow and his... Now, Indra is very similar to Thor. Okay, his rainbow, his eagle who is shot at, the killing of his father, the killing of the snake, yada, yada, yada. You can read all this. You can read all this. This is not what interests me, but you can read it. This is about the rituals. Horses, goats, and sheep were sacrificed. Wine is as a sacred drink. Blah, 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 blah. Genetic studies. Genetic analysis on Kalash individuals found a high and diverse frequency, blah, 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 the relative blah, steps, blah, blah, blah. Okay, genetic, blah, 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 by Rosenberg. According to the European descent hypothesis, it's not a European descent. The Europeans are descended from them. You know what I mean? You got to look at the history. Again, you guys can read all this on your own. and I'm going to move forward. So the Kalash are a genetic isolate in ancient divergence, drift, and selection. This is from PubMed. So this is why I didn't get too into it on Wikipedia. There was no need. So human population shows subtle ally frequency differences that lead to geographical, structural, and available methods, blah, 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 blah. Let's go down to the conclusion. I don't really want to read all that. So the present study sheds light on the origins of the enigmatic Kalash population. From Pakistan, they propose that the population is of ancient origin and not a modern drift, a modern split. The outlier status of these South Asians is corroborated by the fact that they found no evidence of recent admixture in the Kalash by using variety, blah, blah, blah. The ancient separation of the Kalash from the common Eurasian ancestor Kalash from the common Eurasian ancestor is supported by the Since the split, the Kalash have maintained blah 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 blah, whereas the Kalash have recently been reported to have European admixture postulated. So what you have to understand is Europeans evolved from these people. They didn't evolve from the European people. They observed that, or I should say, Europeans evolved from the same common ancestors as these people. They observed that the Kalash share a substantial proportion of drift with a Paleolithic ancient Siberian hunter-gatherer. Now remember what I was talking about with the Chukchi. There's Chukchi, and that's where the split came, and that was the Mongol. And of the Mongol, there was another split of Native American. And so you have, Siberians, you have two sets of Mongols jumping off of that. You have the Mongols, which settled China, whatever, and then you have the Siberians that went into America, and then you have the Indo-Europeans, which are the people like the Kalash, and all of the people of, well, I shouldn't say they're direct descendants because they're mixed, but these are the people, their descendants are the Indians, the Iranians, the people of the Levant, the Greeks, the Italians, the Celts, the Germans, blah, 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 blah. You get what I'm saying? So you can read this on your own if you'd like. This is another similar people called the Barushu or Brushu people. They're also an ethno-linguistic group, indigenous, blah, 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 blah. These are the Hunza people. Okay, they were known for their eating. Now, most of them have converted to Islam, but they were known for their diet, the longevity myth. Now, this is a myth, and I will admit that it is a myth. However, doing what they do probably will definitely increase life expectancy, especially in the modern world. But a widely repeated claim of remarkable longevity of the Hunza people has been refuted as a longevity myth, citing a life expectancy of 53 years for men and 52 years for women. Although with a high standard deviation, there is no evidence that Hunza life expectancy is significantly above the average of poor people in Pakistan. Now, that being said, that's more due to a lack of medicine and way, way too hard of a life, because we know that the diet that the Hunza follow, it's made up of foods that are going to increase longevity according to research. So, a series of blah, 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 northern Pakistan, So, the diet mostly consists of raw food, including nuts, fresh vegetables, dry vegetables, mint, fruits, and seeds added with yogurt. Okay, the cooked meal, dal, which is like lentils, included with chapati, which is a flatbread, is included for dinner. So it's a mostly vegetarian diet. It has also been advocated for being very inexpensive and mostly self-producible, meaning you can grow the shit. The Hunza lifestyle was referenced in the whatever calendar. So this dude, and I recommend you read his book, In his book about the Hunza, J. Hoffman argued that by the ratio to cats, dogs, and I believe that this is accurate, we should be able to live to 120 and 150, and argues that the Hunza diet to be a key. Now, especially with the technologies we have now, there's no excuse. So, like I said, you got to remember the exceptional longevity is not necessarily reality, but this is their diet. I do not recommend eating apricot kernels, however, because why not? Why not? Okay, the reason I don't recommend eating apricot kernels is because they're high in poison. So, daily physical exercise. Hunza diet bread. This is how you make their bread, their special bread. Okay. Check it out. Australo-Melanesians, also known as Australasians, and Austral whatever, is an outdated historical, everything's an outdated historical grouping. While most authors included Papuans, Aboriginal Australians, Melanesians, blah 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 blah, there was controversy about the inclusion of various Southeast Asian populations, and I'm going to say why that's not necessarily smart to do that until you get the genetics in. Negrito and a number of dark-skinned tribal populations in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, this is all about controversies. Nobody likes anthropology, at least not real anthropology. Criticisms based on modern genetics. Yeah, they criticize based on modern genetics, but lo and behold, Indians reached Australia 4,000 years ago, and we know this because of the genetics of the Australian Aboriginal people. People can check this out on their own. I don't feel like going through the whole article because this is getting pretty chunky, this video. Genetic variations in the Dravidian population of southwest coast of India, blah, 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 methods, yada, 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 ally frequencies, blah, 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 interpretation. Despite the complex genetic origins of the Indian population, their study indicated a low level of genetic differentiation among Dravidian language speakers, meaning that Dravidians that are, they have this relatively the same genes. Now, that's probably due to the caste system. Single nucleotide people can read this on their own. As I've stated before, the need, how the hell, what's the alternative to the alt-right? Well, the alternative to the alt-right is essentially a focus on the self, a focus on the family, a focus on the community, and from there, the community can focus on the state, or the community can focus on the locality can focus on the state, and the state can focus on the country. Essentially, if demographics is the problem, okay, whether that demographic is biological, ideological, etc., religious, what have you, sociological, those demographics need to be shifted. Now, they're not going to shift back, but they can shift forward and something else. Now, Dr. Kellogg was also a believer in eugenics. Okay, so yeah, Kellogg's cereal and graham crackers are brought to the table, yada yada, both men, yada yada. Graham crackers were not actually invented by Mr. Kellogg, they were invented by Graham. I don't recommend eating Kellogg cereals. Okay, so the Whites, meaning Ellen and her husband, they opened a health center in part of blah 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 blah. So God's great medicine, this is the essence of biologic living. God's great medicine is water, pure soft water, although I do believe that minerals are very important, for disease, for health, for cleanliness, for luxury. So White viewed health, well, that's not the essence of biologic living, I'm sorry, that's the essence of the water cure. That's not excellent. I mean, so Kellogg worked in blah 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 blah, the sound could Kellogg incorporated his ideas for health into a total system he termed biologic living. The philosophy drew its essential inspiration from the belief in the intimate relationship between the body and morality. Kellogg argued for minimal interference in cases of illness in order that the body's natural ability to assume health would be assisted rather than interrupted. He favored amending the thought of medical secretarians such as Graham with the concentration on the development of medical science. So this is medicine, okay? This is preventative medicine. Like many of the Christian physiologists of the time, he preached a lifestyle void of meat, void of caffeine, and void of eggs and dairy. His approach was not only about the health of humans, but the well-being of animals as well. Kellogg emphasized a diet rich in fresh foods and whole grains, a lifestyle with ample fresh air, regular exercise, and void of sexual excess and masturbation. Those last ones, But the point is, this lifestyle makes Adventists live on average 10 years longer than the average population. So, where does this get us in understanding these? Okay, so blah, 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 blah. Graham, Kellogg, White, and the rest of the Christian physiologist party of the 19th century were in part so very insistent on the elimination of masturbation, blah, 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 blah. Okay, sexual intercourse, masturbation, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of nonsense. And this is where Tantra comes in. Understanding Tantra, the exercises of Tantra and the exercises of Taoism come in. Okay, these are vitally important to building up vital energy. I've gone over the 8 laws of health quite a bit. I'm not going to go over it again, but I want people to understand, this is how you focus. Well, you know what? I'm going to go over it again because people need to hear it again, I'm assuming. So, how do we rebuild our society? Well, we start by rebuilding ourselves and our families. And that starts by adhering to biologic living. So, nutrition, the dangers of meat eating and dairy products. People can read this on their own. Okay. See, this is interesting. Bovine leukemia virus has been found in milk, and it's also been found in breast cancer when they do genetic research, genetic investigations. It is much healthier to use whole grains. Avoid added sugar. Exercise. Now, what's important is you need to exercise in a way that does not upset the body too much. Okay? Gentle exercise, like stretching and gentle strength training, is, in my opinion, the best. Water, and of course walking and things of that nature. Drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. Get at least 15 minutes of sunshine a day. Don't overeat. Don't use alcohol. Don't use alcohol. Don't overeat. And don't use any stuff you know is bad for you. Don't eat any refined foods. Okay? Don't eat, and don't be a sex maniac and a pervert. Okay? Breathe air, fresh, pure air if you can. But also, what you need to understand is practice breathing exercises. Breathing exercises like those in yoga, those in Taoism, those in Buddhism. Rest. Don't overexert yourself. You need to rest. Trust in God. Now, as I've noted, this does not mean that you necessarily even need to believe in God. What this means is that you realize you're not God. There's a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, or Not Giving a Fuck, and I encourage people to read that book or listen to it. I have it's a playlist that I created that you can check that out. So Anton Szandor LaVey, people know I'm a fan of Mr. LaVey, sort of, not really. I think that LaVey did a lot. It's weird. I have a mixed feelings about LaVey and Satanism. But one of the things Satanism says is that it gets rid of these sins. I mean, it represents all of these sins, all of the 7 deadly sins. I say the 7 deadly sins after reading and understanding holistic health. I think the 7 deadly sins are important at maintaining good mental and physical health. So, you don't want pride. Okay, so how do we get rid of pride? We act in a humble way. Now, this is the thing. Pride, we need 2 different definitions. So, the term hubris, or self-destructive pride, which is actually dealt with in the 7 satanic sins, or not the 9 satanic sins. Whoops, sorry about that. But people should read those things too. But you got to get rid of pride, and by pride, it doesn't mean pride in oneself. In fact, Elaine Lalaine just wrote an excellent book called Pride and Discipline, based on her husband's life, Jack LaLanne. Pride is important. Taking pride in yourself, pride in your people, pride in who you are, that's important. Hubris, self-destructive pride, is what you don't want. So how do you get rid of self-destructive pride? Be humble. Avarice, this is greed. How do you get rid of greed? So you got to concentrate on what you have and not what you don't have. That's how you get rid of greed, okay? Envy, how do you get rid of envy? Okay, this is another, again, concentrating on cultivating an attitude of gratitude, which can be difficult. Generosity is the opposite of envy. I don't recommend necessarily being overly generous. I think that you have to be grateful for what you have. But being somewhat generous and being polite to others is perfectly fine. Anger, this is my big problem. So what's the thing about anger? Meekness is the virtue that helps us control anger. Blessed are the meek, blah, 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 blah. I don't believe in being meek, but the combination of strength and gentleness, the ability to use force when necessary and gentleness to forego it. Okay, so what the dude Jesus says is, I am meek and humble of heart. Imagine a bruised reed, blah, blah, blah. A bruised reed he shall not break, and a smoldering wick he shall not quench. So, what this is this is similar to the concepts of Aikido or Judo, in the sense that you need to have give, okay? Now, lust, uncontrollable lust, when you're making bad sexual choices, that's a bad thing. So the opposite of lust is chastity. Well, I don't believe in that, but maintaining a healthy outlook towards sex is important. Gluttony, the opposite of gluttony is temperance. Don't eat so damn much. Sloth. Okay, hungering for righteousness, blah, 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 satisfies deepest desires. Now, this is a problem that people have, is they confuse this sin, they confuse laziness with the need to rest, and many people work themselves to death. Don't do that. Don't do that. You need your rest. So that's Did the Road This. So this is just going over the 7 sacraments of Christianity. You got the sacraments of initiation, or of Catholicism. You got the sacraments of, a lot of these are just pagan, but they've been given Christian associations, which is how religions evolve. Sacraments of healing, penance. So this is important. So the sacrament of penance, okay, what you need to understand is You need to be sincere and remorseful when you have a problem. You don't need confession, but you do need to be sincere, remorseful, and don't do what you did again. Okay? And in my opinion, absolution does not come from the priest. Absolution comes from yourself. Anointing the sick. Okay, sacraments of service, blah, 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 blah. Anointing the sick is important. You can see that as the practice of modern medicine. These are the holy orders, matrimony, marriage is a sacrament, validity, blah, blah, blah. So, people can read this if they wish. I don't believe it's necessary to the overarching theme of this video, but I think it's worthwhile. So, what are the 5 pillars of Islam? Now, these are important because this is how you cultivate good mental health, okay? So, let's see here. The pillars of Sunni Islam are the declaration of faith, belief in God, okay? Now, remember, Islam means to submit to God. So, essentially, understanding the Dharma is a way of submitting to God. Understanding natural laws, a way of submitting to the laws of nature. Okay, so first is a declaration of faith and recognition of God. Second is prayer. Third is almsgiving, giving to the poor. So the giver must declare to God his intention to give blah, 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 after offering, yada, 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 da, da. You can read this on your own. The 4th pillar is fasting. In my opinion, this can be accomplished by not eating so fucking much. The 5th pillar is pilgrimage, which means going to Mecca. For those of us that believe in naturalistic, it means going to a place that's natural, that hasn't been tainted by humanity, such as a national park, something like that. Pillars of Shia Islam: monotheism, the belief in the oneness of God; divine justice, belief in God's justice; prophethood; succession to Muhammad; the day of judgment and resurrection. Okay, this is in addition to these 5 pillars. Shia Muslims perform what they call the 5 ancillaries of faith: daily prayers, fasting at Ramadan, almsgiving. You can read this on your own. This is going into the history of the 5 pillars. So the 5 precepts of Buddhism is abstention from killing, or ahimsa. That is extremely important, and this is related to the right to life. Abstention from theft, generosity and reunification, the right to property. People have the right to have property. Abstention from sexual misconduct. Okay? The right to fidelity in marriage. Okay? Abstention from speaking lies. Truth-telling. Don't lie. Or at the very least, don't lie. Abstention from intoxication. Don't drink or use drugs. So the ultimate book for self-care, and I recommend everybody read it, is actually a book by L. Ron Hubbard. I think everybody should read it. It's a secular guide toward self-care, really. So let's see, the booklet, blah, 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 blah. So these are the 20 things, the 21 precepts that he recommends, okay? Take care of yourself. Be temperate. Obviously, you should read the book. Don't be promiscuous. Love and help children. Honor and help your parents. Set a good example. Okay, so seek to live with the truth. So do not murder. Don't do anything illegal. Support a government designed and run by the people. Do not harm a person of goodwill. Safeguard and improve your environment. Do not steal. Be worthy of trust. Fulfill your obligations. Be industrious. Be competent. Respect the religious beliefs of others. Try not to do things to others that you would not like them to do to you. Try to treat others as you would want them to treat you, and then flourish and prosper. I think that everybody should read this book, and everybody, I do think some of it needs a little bit more elaboration, such as what a healthy diet is and things like that. But for the basis of good general self-care, I think you can't beat The Way to Happiness by L. Ron Hubbard. For good mental and physical health, for generally speaking, you're not going to beat this book, and I recommend everybody read it. And this is the Way to Happiness website, where you can grab up copies and share them with your friends. They also have different tools you can use. There's free online courses. Give it a shot if you feel like it. I personally don't believe that you need an online course. I think it's very self-explanatory, but I think that it's a necessity that everyone reads this book. It's an important book to read. I would recommend everybody own the book. And if you feel like it, share it with people. So the most beneficial means of meditation I've found is actually simply Zen meditation. Is a form of mental stillness. Now in Aikido, this is from an Aikido center, you want to breathe, you want to practice belly breathing, and you want to go as slow as possible. So you don't need to sit in a kneeling position. You need to sit in a comfortable position, which is fine. So you're going to sit still with your spine erect, chin pulled in, relax. And now, I don't recommend keeping your chin pulled in. I recommend keeping your chin a little bit erect, but relax, breathe gently and deeply, and exhale longer than you inhale. Relax and let go, dropping energy down. You can also find this in the, what the hell's that book called? The Relaxation Response. Keep the mind on the hara. The hara is your center of gravity, a little bit below the belly button. Focused eyes, limited blinking. You can also close your eyes. This is my playlist about the subtle art of not giving a fuck. I strongly recommend people listen to the audiobook. There's 2 copies of the audiobook, and there is an animation that you can watch. This is my video series on basic medically recommended self-care to extend human lifespan. I recommend people watch all of these videos. This is my video, How Do We Extend Human Lifespan for Real? There's plenty of links here to prove what I'm saying, and I recommend people take the time and watch this video. It's in the previously mentioned playlist. I recommend people watch one of these long videos here about John Scharfenberg, who is a Seventh-day Adventist doctor and was a teacher of nutrition at Loma Linda University. Strongly recommend it. He's almost 100 years old, probably 100 years old by now, but I recommend you folks watch it. Take your time to understand what he's saying. It's important that you do. If you watch one of these, you pretty much watched them all, but I made a playlist just so people have access to different ways that it's being said. So quickly, I'm going to go, I'm not going to show any of these, but one of the best ways to not be fucked with is to don't wear or express any symbols designated as symbols of hate. Now, unfortunately, the ADL designates everything as a symbol of hate. But you can go through these and look at them. I do not support the ADL. I see the ADL as an extremist anti-American hate group. And I think that the United States government needs to do something about the ADL, who is trying to censor Americans. But you shouldn't be wearing symbols, in my opinion. You have the freedom to, but you shouldn't be wearing symbols that are going to bring the wrong attention to you. And that's all for this video.